Sounds like everything is working. Yeah, we are live. Let me know if there's any technical difficulties or anything. The video I have today is The Eternal Recurrence by Nietzsche. This is something I've talked about before, but I don't know. I need to find a way to maybe I'll make PowerPoints, maybe I'll do something like I need to figure out a way to kind of do videos like this because I feel like I could do them really, really well, and if I really put time and effort into them, they could be really good. Um, but yeah. The video today is going to be Nietzsche. If I get to it, I have another video which is absurdism, which is Camus, Kierkegaard, and Dostoevsky. I guess it's also existentialism, but yeah, we'll probably not get to that. But just in case, I have another video. But yeah, um,
Thought. In Ecce Homo, he states, I now wish to relate the history of Zarathustra, the fundamental idea of the work, the eternal recurrence. The highest formula of a yes saying to life that can ever be attained was first conceived in the month of August 1881. I made a note of the idea on a sheet of paper with the postscript 6,000 feet beyond man and time. This video is part 1 of a 2-part series of Nietzsche's Eternal Recurrence made in collaboration with Weltgeist. Make sure to check out part 2.
so briefly, he's going to say it again. I hope he says it again. Think of the eternal recurrence. So Nietzsche was an avid atheist. Nietzsche didn't really believe in any set idealism, any set religion, any set belief system. And this was great. This was both his greatest weakness and his greatest strength because he was able to remain such a, I mean, in some aspects it's pessimistic, and in other aspects it's inspirational. But Nietzsche saw the flaws in everything. He saw the flaws in every single system. I mean, we could talk about the injustices of the Catholic Church. We can talk about the injustices of all other religions. We can talk about the holy wars and this and that. And to me, that's what Nietzsche disliked about a lot of these ideologies. He was disillusioned by these sides of things, and he never quite got to the more philosophical, more spiritual aspects of these religions. I think if he did that, maybe he would have found inspiration in it. But Nietzsche's eternal recurrence is as follows. Think of time as infinite. I mean, we can debate philosophically if time is infinite or not. Is it infinite because it will continue to go on even beyond human comprehension, even beyond everything? Like there'll be a day and age where every atom decays, but time will still go on. Entropy will still happen unless something else. Like we just have to assume it because it's. Let's just assume it, okay? But if time goes on forever, then there will eventually be an exact scenario where you have to be in the exact same position that you are today. And in fact, if that's true, it will happen again and again and again and again. And every molecule that makes you up right now, every decision you've made in your entire life, you will have to repeat. Now, armed with this fact, are you happy with living the life that you're living? Are you happy with your day today? Are you happy with the things that you allow to limit yourself? Are you happy with the direction that you're going to go? Or do you want to make a change? Because you have to repeat this time and time and time and time again. You're going to have to repeat this same existence. And you better like it. You better enjoy it. You better get the most out of your day. And it's one of the most inspirational ideas because it teaches you the importance of this current moment. If you fixate on this current moment, then nothing else matters. I mean, this is a central idea of Taoism and Buddhism. Like the more you fixate on the now, the more everything fades to the background. You'll still have problems, they'll still face you at some point, but like this goes to the old idea of Seneca. Seneca said, we suffer more in our own minds than we do in reality. And this is the idea that we fixate on things and build them up to be these great monsters when meanwhile they're just a problem that we can tackle with the flick of the wrist. Like we're making our problems worse actively. And instead of fixating on the thing that we can control, which is this very second, we fix on everything else and petrifies us. It almost solidifies us to persist in these current states of fear, these current states that I can't do this, I can't do that. I like when you really, really, really just gain presence, when you really, really just calm down your mind, everything else kind of fades to the background. Everything else kind of just disappears. It dissipates. The problems that you were worried about a second ago, they're no longer here. And that's what this idea is meant to inspire. It's meant to make sure that you understand that if you want to do something, you do it this very second. Because the second that you don't do it is the second that you missed out. You know what I mean? We're all going to have regrets in our lifetime, but like the biggest regrets are not even trying. The biggest regrets are not even starting. The biggest regrets are never finding out. It's not that we failed. It's not that we didn't do this. It's that we didn't do our best.
which contains Nietzsche's eternal recurrence as an actual state of affairs. There's a link in the description box below, and subscribe to his channel for more great content. As Nietzsche was walking through the woods alongside a lake, he encountered a huge rock that towered aloft like a pyramid. It was here where the thought struck him. The eternal recurrence supposes that you would have to experience the same life with the same events and same experiences repeated for eternity. It makes its first appearance in the gay science.
It's like I think he says it like I know he specifically says it once, but he hints to it at several other points in this book. This is if you're going to read anything by Nietzsche, read this. Thus Spoke Zarathustra is very philosophical, very allegorical, and it's really poetic. This is more philosophical. This is more like straightforward, where Thus Spoke Zarathustra is I don't know the right word for it. It's not like it's almost like James Joyce, like it's intentionally difficult to read. It's intentionally something that you're supposed to enjoy time and time again. It's not something that everything's going to stick with you. Like I imagine when I read Thus Spoke Zarathustra in a few more years, I'm going to have a completely new takeaway. I'm going to think about it in a whole new manner. And all the ideas are very similar. I just think this is going to give you a better, more straightforward approach to it.
Science, under the title The Greatest Weight, where Nietzsche raises the hypothetical question of how you would react if a demon spelled it out to you. Nietzsche suggests that most people would consider this a curse, and that it would require the most impassioned love of life to crave nothing more fervently than this ultimate eternal confirmation and seal. The idea is horrifying and paralyzing, as it carries the burden of the heaviest weight imaginable. However, it is also the ultimate affirmation of life. It is the rock that fills the emptiness and weightlessness void of.
Like the idea, what he's saying right now is if you don't like your current life, it's petrifying because you're destined to repeat it. So you better make a change. You better do something differently. You better start actually listening to where you want to be in your heart. Like we all have a side of ourselves that we show to the world, and we have a side of ourselves that we lay dormant. We allow to be pushed to the background. We allow to just never be expressed. And this is what you see in Freudian psychology, Jungian psychology. Jung calls it the self. I think Freud calls it I think he calls it the ego. Maybe that's what he calls it. But um basically what we're doing day after day after day is we're creating this gap, this chasm. And like the true side of yourself will never be fulfilled. Your true happiness will never be there until we start listening to that voice in the back of our head and still until we start doing the things day after day that really make us happy. I think it's a very complex question because it's something that you have to understand about yourself before you can ever begin to find out what you actually want. Like you have to do a lot of soul searching, you have to do a lot of introspection, you have to do a lot of trial and error. This is what Jung called the individuation process. It's going out there and trying new things, going out there and doing things that you think you might like, going out there and trying to experience different angles of yourself and find a closer representation of who you really are. Because think about it nowadays, most people are like one thing, two things. Like most people are like, oh, I'm this religion, I'm this politics, I'm this, I'm like most people like to group themselves into categories and like sometimes you can find purpose and meaning through these things, but I think it's inherently limiting because the moment you start to question whatever belief system is, the moment you get ostracized from it. So I think it's you have to like spread yourself into different areas. Like I really like philosophy. I really like religion. I sometimes read finance. I sometimes read poetry. Like it's finding yourself through all these categories where you really get a lot of outlooks. Jaden, what's up? Not really. It's been a while, man. Remind me what we talked about. I like it. Your name like rings a bell, but dude, I've been like not streaming. So like if I see you day after day after day, I'll remember you. But if there's a huge gap, it's my memory doesn't, it's not as good. Like after a few weeks, I just forget things.
Nihilism. To comprehend and embrace it requires amor fati, the love of fate and the acceptance.
More fati is like loving everything that happens to you. And this idea is loving each and every setback, each and every failure, loving all of your blessings, loving everything equally because they make you who you are. Think about it. If you succeeded trying to do something great on the first try, it would mean nothing. Because if you succeed instantly, then there's no challenge, there's no pushback. If everything went your way at all times, it would be the most boring life ever because you would just win. You don't appreciate things when they come easy. You appreciate them when they come after years and years and years and years of trial and error, years and years of getting better and better and better, and then it actually means something. If you just get on a helicopter and instantly get to the top of the mountain, cool, you did nothing. But if you actually march your way up there, you have the blood, sweat, and tears that make that worth it, that make it have meaning, that make it difficult. Like I think the biggest issue today is like people don't crave difficulty. People don't crave challenge. People don't crave facing your fears. Like it's only through that that we learn anything about ourselves. And the only joy that we can find in life is through self-knowledge.
And affirmation of the events of life. The idea of the eternal recurrence does not suggest there to be an eternal afterlife, but rather an eternal repetition of what constitutes existence in the present world. It is important to realize how frightful Nietzsche himself found the doctrine, and how difficult it was for him to accept it. He wrote in a moment of despair, "I do not want life again. How did I endure it? Creating. What makes me stand the sight of it? The vision of the overman who affirms life. I have tried to affirm it myself, alas."
It's yeah, I have YouTube Premium. Dude, it's so much better. YouTube Premium, I don't, okay. I like got it, like I got some deal where it was like 90 days, it's $1, and I've never canceled it since because it's literally the greatest thing ever. Like when I'm using YouTube on my phone, I please don't buy this because I'm not sponsored. This is not a sponsorship. I'm pretty sure I have to say this, but literally when I'm using YouTube on my phone, I can close the screen. So I can literally just listen to podcasts. I can listen to audiobooks. I can listen to videos like this while I'm at the gym, while I'm walking around. I don't use Spotify anymore because what's the point of me using Spotify? I can get so much more stuff on YouTube. It really, I mean, I also have a YouTube channel too, so it's like it's just easier, but it's the greatest thing I've ever had. I swear. If I don't know where I'd be without it. The ads, like when I go on my other channel, like this is my main channel, but when I go on my channel that I'm streaming on right now and I like click on a video, there's like I have to skip an ad. I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. But
His primary reaction is that no idea could be more gruesome. However, he discovers that there are moments in life that makes this idea not only bearable, but beautiful.
so what he's talking about right now is this is Camus' idea of you have to imagine Sisyphus smiling. So in the monotony, in the pain, the endless journey of life and the setbacks and the failures, you have to gain the perspective. You have to appreciate the things that you do, have the little things. Like, you may go to work, you may have an awful job, but guess what? You get to go to bed next to your beautiful wife, or you get to go home to your family. Like, we all have a little ray of good in our lives, no matter how bad our lives are. There's always something we can come onto it. It reminds me of, what is it? What's the book called? Man's Search for Meaning, where Viktor Frankl is going, he's going even in the concentration camps, he could find little pockets of joy. Like he could find moments when he was literally, I think he was in Auschwitz or Dachau at the time, but he got to sleep in one day and he was like, man, this is the greatest day ever. Like he literally didn't have to do slave labor for one day and he was eternally happy. It's like, it's just such an inspiring idea when you can look at things like this. Use SoundCloud Premium. SoundCloud has ads. I can only imagine the ads in SoundCloud. I have a friend that like strictly listens to music that's only on SoundCloud, and He's something else. What's up, Fluffy Kitty?
Sickness and convalescence is an important theme throughout Nietzsche's writings, and reflects his personal fight with constant illness. He refers to the critical time in which out of sickness great health is born as the highest time. Pain and pleasure are therefore closely tied together, he states. But what if pleasure and pain should be so closely connected that he who wants the greatest possible amount of the one must also have the greatest possible amount of the other? That he who wants to experience the heavenly high jubilation must also be ready to be sorrowful unto death?
Yeah. The best way I've heard this put was by Khalil Gibran. I think that's how you say it. Khalil Gibran, Khalil Gibran. I don't know how to say it. I'm sorry. He said, "Every sorrow deepens your joy. Every time you experience bad, it makes you appreciate the good more. It's the ups and downs. It's the paradox of life." Um, when you really look at it, philosophically, paradoxes are some of the deepest insights you'll ever gain. Like out of our darkest moments, think about it, out of every breakup you've had, those are usually the moments of the greatest transformation because it makes you look in the mirror and actually be honest with yourself. Like, I'm never going to get the same kind of growth that I got through my darkest days. You know what I mean? And it's usually through a breakup. It's usually through like a relationship, a love, a friendship breaking up. Like, it's only through like really serious times of our lives where we can gain those lessons that need to be learned because we're very rarely honest with ourselves. Yeah, gay science. It's a bad translation. It should be called the joyous science. I think the word doesn't really mean what it used to mean. It was translated in the 50s.
This quote shows the harmony
It's really ironic because I feel like most people have such a pessimistic view of Nietzsche. I think most people, myself included, for when I first read Beyond Good and Evil, I was like, man, this guy is really smart, but he's not very happy. And that was my main criticism of him. But when you're reading the gay science, you're seeing someone that wants to be happy. Buy the Switch 2? No, I'm not buying the Switch 2. Isn't it the funniest thing about the Switch 2 ad is like they're like, wow, you can talk to your friends and you can see them play the game and like it's literally like one frame a second. It was just so funny. I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, yes, let me pay extra money for this privilege of doing this. Buy the PS5. Dude, I'm not gonna buy a PS5. I'm not gonna buy a Switch. I don't play video games. The only video game I play is like Minecraft, and I can just play that on my laptop. Um, I don't know. I don't know a game that's gonna make me buy a console. Like I feel like if I really want to play a game now, I could just get it on my laptop. I feel like consoles are kind of like I don't know if outdated is the right word, but even if I want to use a controller, I can use it on my laptop. So like, what's the point of me paying $500 to do something I can already do on my laptop? I mean, please tell me I'm wrong. I'm very interested in this, but like, I just don't see a point. The Switch 2 is the highest quality in the market. Oh yeah, man. Have you seen like the where you can slide it on like a desk? Wow, it can function like a mouse. We were all looking for that. Like, is this like is this so dumb?
between opposing forces that Nietzsche has not only discovered or perceived in a theoretical way, but has known how to experience firsthand as the most intense pain and the most effusive joy, reaching a feeling of joy worthy of gods. The eternal recurrence is the denial of any absolute beginning, any creation, and any god. Thus it breaks through the
It almost, to me, the eternal recurrence makes you fixate on the moment. And if you know anything about Buddhism, about Taoism, the doctrine of no mind. Think about it like that. Like Wu Wei, inspired action, things like that. It's very much like a recentering activity. It's very much like making you hyper fixate on the current situations that you're in and how to get yourself out of them. How to align yourself better with who you really are. When Plato says, "Know thyself," this is this pursuit. When you really break it down, most of our lives are spent trying to figure out who we are, and most of our lives are spent in pursuits that will never lead us that way. Think of anyone that pursues purely material possessions without anything else in mind. Like cool, you made $1 billion. Did you make $1 billion doing something that really inspires you, or did you just sit in a bunch of boardroom meetings? Like, not to say that that can't inspire you. Like some people, they really have awesome jobs. They really change the world. They really do great things. But I think there's too much of a focus today on all of the material things. Think of when someone gets a paycheck, do they spend it on the people around them? Do they get the people around them gifts? Or do they spend it on themselves? Do they buy a new designer thing? Do they buy this? Do they buy that? Like, I'm not saying it's bad to buy yourself things, but like think of what you're using your money to. Think of the lengths you're going to make more money. Like most people will sacrifice their entire lives. They will sacrifice all of their free time. They'll sacrifice their passions, their hobbies for the sake of a paycheck. And to me, that's not a life worth living. To me, there's so much more. To me, I would rather have a moderately respectable living, nothing crazy, nothing you know, like obviously able to meet my means than sacrificing all my time and energy for the sake of a paycheck. Because at the end of it, like my life is worth much more than any amount of material success. Do you like Prince Albert? I don't know who that is.
2000 years of Christianity. It is a critique and repudiation of the Platonic Christian tradition and accomplishes a revaluation of values. The timeless eternity of a supernatural God is replaced by the eternity of the ever-creating and destroying powers in nature and man. Nietzsche concentrates upon the dispute between the doctrine of becoming, attributed to Heraclitus, and the doctrine of being, attributed.
Okay, so Heraclitus, I guess that's how you say it. I was saying Heraclides. Heraclitus is literally only known for like one phrase. I think most of his writings were lost. The only thing I know him for was the idea that you can never step in the same river twice. And think about it, I mean, it's both a great metaphor, it's a great example because the moment you put your foot in the water that touched you first is already downstream. But it's also a great example of like the second you do something, it's already past. The second you create something, it's already being destroyed. The second that something's being destroyed, it's already creating something new. Like everything's in flux. We're literally all just atoms j- jamming around in random orders. Most of what comprises me is completely space. Most of what comprises you is completely space. I'm touching this water bottle, but there's still an infinitesimally small distance between them. Like nothing is static. Nothing is not moving. And when you start to look at things in this way, it really puts things in perspective. It really drops all of your fixations on things. It drops you wanting to cling to things. When you accept things for what they are, then you get the best out of them. Think of when you try to control someone, when you try to dictate someone else's actions, it never goes well. The more you try to control someone, the more they're going to rebel. Whereas the more freedom you give someone, the more they're going to respect your values. I think it's really easy to see in the context of relationships, but it's the same thing with everything else around you. The more you cling on to your title, the more you cling on to your wealth, the more you cling on to your looks, the more it's going to fade, the more cracks you're going to see in the foundation. And I don't think it's good to be too attached to anything. I think obviously you don't become a monk. I don't think that's really the best route for anybody, but don't be so wrapped up in things you have. Don't be so wrapped up in characteristics or really anything that you can describe because it's going to fade one day. Even you are one day going to fade into something else. Like every cell in your body once was part of something else. It will again be something else at some point. So it's like just accept things for the way they are. Show the physique. Why?
To Parmenides as the most important event in the history of early Greek thought. Nietzsche was greatly influenced by Heraclitus' idea of becoming. He states, Heraclitus will remain eternally right with his assertion that being is an empty fiction.
That's very important because most of this is getting really into things. Most of Western philosophy is based off of the Aristotelian idea of concrete substance, of concrete physical things, and how we describe things. And the truth of this is it's somewhat correct, but it's also somewhat incorrect. Like it's the same thing with Newtonian physics and then Einstein's basically destroying those ideas. Like, um, while something may seem like it's rigid, at the same time, it's also in flux. And it's almost the idea of like the answer is probably somewhere in between these two things. But it's like I think people are too wrapped up in the rigidity. People are too wrapped up in the structure. People are too wrapped up in this is that. This is like not really something else, but you know.
Eternally right with his assertion that being is an empty fiction. The death of the Christian God made Nietzsche rediscover the ancient world. He revived this classical idea. Nietzsche finds in Heraclitus's philosophy three elements which become leitmotifs in his teaching. Life is eternal war, polarity, and tension. Life is becoming and flux, and life is play, the world of Zeus. These elements become the basis for Nietzsche's fundamental concepts of the will to power and the eternal.
So the will to power is the idea that people don't help you for the sake of helping you, they help for the sake of their own power. Like, um, what is it? Who was it? Schopenhauer basically gave Nietzsche the spark of this idea when he said, every organism works for the sake of self-preservation. And Nietzsche was okay with this for a while, but then he eventually got to the point where it was every organism is working for the gaining of power to exact their will on everything else. And this is what's called the will to power, like the ability to somewhat control the environment you're in, the ability to somewhat exact force. And I mean, you even see this with Freud as well, even Jung. Like, think of people that try to do great things. What is seeking fame? What is ambition? What are all of these material things we're trying to collect? We're trying to leave a legacy. We're trying to basically forego death and somehow create a entity after we're gone. And somehow trying to live forever. That's what ambition is. Ambition is the attempt to live forever.
Recurrence. The concept of the will to power is the foundation of Nietzsche's theory of eternal recurrence and the basis of his metaphysics. Nietzsche is often called a philosopher of life. Heidegger calls his belief a metaphysics of.
The best way to describe Nietzsche, the best way to understand Nietzsche is to understand that he called himself an Emerson twin flames. He called themselves like soul brothers, something like that. Um, and when you understand that, it makes it so much easier because I think Nietzsche gets too intellectual with his ideas. I think he gets too in the weeds of things with his ideas. Whereas when you read Emerson, it's really, really clear. And understanding that, it's very simple. Saturn is the second largest planet in our solar system. Mostly men, I guess. Dude, planets are weird, man. Octopuses are, dude, those things are scary. Um, I mean, one, we have like giant squids, like those things are like terrifying. The fact that they can get that big, but like I was in an aquarium and there was like a tour guide or whatever, or someone just showing people around, and he was saying that they had to put weights on the lid of the octopus's tank because he was lifting the lid up, sneaking out, eating all the other fish, and then going back into his tank at night. And it's like those very, oh, Jaden, that's how it's pronounced. Thank you for that, dude. It's like that's the James Bond movie, Octopussy. Dude, it's such a that's like probably the worst James Bond movie. I think. Like I don't I just remember it being so awful. Like the one where they go to the moon is pretty bad. It's just like it's redeeming because they have that one guy Jaws who um you know picks up that one chick, but like aside from that, I don't think that movie is good at all.
Being, and he's quite right in stating that Nietzsche is a metaphysician, and the eternal recurrence a doctrine where being is thought in its deepest
Okay. So I wouldn't say Nietzsche is a
sense, where
metaphysician, but I think Nietzsche hits at some Taoist Buddhist ideals. He hits at them, he hints at them. I don't know if he understood the depth of what he was writing. I think he was taking it purely philosophically. I don't think he was taking it spiritually. That's the one thing I think is the difference between Nietzsche and Emerson. To Emerson, his ideas were a spiritual experience. To Nietzsche, his ideas were a philosophical experience. Like he didn't think of like when you hear an artist speak, it's very like weird, it's very spontaneous, it's very out there. I think that's what you would hear from Emerson, whereas Nietzsche is he had the capabilities of an artist, but he was much more rational. He was much more rigid with that. He wasn't willing to give anything to anything he couldn't exactly describe, exactly understand, exactly put words to. And I think that's the one thing he didn't really have. But again, it could just be misreading. I haven't read all this stuff. I'm gonna read. I think this is the next book I'm gonna read by him, The Will to Power. I think I have one more by him that I haven't read. Actually, no, I don't. This is gonna be the next, probably the next book I read after I finish. It's right here, Ulysses. This is the hardest book I've ever read. It's legit like I cannot make sense of any of it, and I love it so much for that fact. I don't suggest reading it if you're not gonna commit to it because it's something that is like it's brutal but great at the same time.
Wherever Nietzsche rejects metaphysics, it is only the Platonic Christian tradition that he opposes, in which being is understood as unchanging and transcendent. Therefore, Nietzsche only rejects metaphysics of a fixed and static world, just as Nietzsche
I I can agree with that. I don't think Nietzsche had a problem with God. Most people wouldn't really understand. Nietzsche is most famous for the statement that God is dead, but they don't understand the second part. The first part is God is dead. The second part is man killed him. And this is the idea that like the original foundations that created God really aren't upheld. It's become more of a structure. It's become more of a political system than a spiritual enlightenment. And the adherence to these doctrines get away from the actual messaging of things. Like, think about it this way. One of the easiest examples is let he who hath no sin cast the first stone. This is obviously the famous scene where Jesus finds was it a prostitute? Was it an adulterer? I don't remember, but it doesn't matter for the sake of things. But basically, someone that was sexually immoral, and people are about to stone her, and Jesus says, "That you have no sin, cast the first stone," meaning, how dare you judge anyone else before you judge yourself? Who are you to say this person is wrong before you even fix your own problems first? And now look at the modern Catholic Church. Now look at the modern, religions. They're very quick to judge others. They're very quick to tell people how they're living wrong. And this is my biggest issue with a lot of belief systems. This is my biggest issue with a lot of individuals. It's more so like I'm better than you because I believe this thing. That's how most religious people nowadays come off. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of really good religious people, but in mass, I think this is the main problem with it. But yeah, this is basically what Nietzsche was talking about.
the moralist, is in reality a seeker of moral values beyond good and
What's
evil.
up,
The
Eddie?
will
How's
to
everything?
power is a dynamic force in continuous becoming and striving, manifesting itself in the encounter with obstacles. Nietzsche's will to power is different from Darwin's principle of the survival of the fittest.
I don't know why you're
Nietzsche's
bringing it up.
survival is not merely struggle for existence.
So think of the will to power as I think this was in the gay science. It was people don't others for the sake of helping others. They help others because if you can show you can help someone else, that you can influence someone to live a better life, and that person goes out and does something great, you can always take credit for their success. You can always somehow expand your power through expanding someone that you've propped up. And it's a very interesting idea because how much of us helping people is from the goodness of our heart, and how much of it is to expand our influence, to expand the idea that, oh, I'm such a great person because I did this for this person. It's a very interesting philosophical question. Power's out and laptop dead. Damn, that sucks. Is everything good, or is it just power outage? Is it like a storm?
and self-preservation, but it is primarily struggle for increase of power, while the fittest is the higher individual. The free spirit is one who affirms struggle as a creative force and aims at the intensification of power. The two basic concepts of the will to power and the eternal recurrence seem at first to contradict each other, the will to power symbolizing an eternal development, and the eternal recurrence an eternal sameness. Nietzsche himself sees no contradiction. He calls becoming a form of being, thus they are compatible. This is best expressed in Heraclitus'
So think of it, something is something, but it's actively becoming something else. So if you could pause time, then I could say, this is my phone. Then I could say, this is my water bottle. If I could do that, but actively it's decaying. Actively, my phone is slowly and slowly and slowly being turned into something else, just as well as me. Like everything you see is that the protons are actively breaking down, they're actively decaying. And eventually everything you'll see will be something else. This is this idea.
famous quote, which symbolizes becoming and constant flux. No man ever steps in the same river twice.
Osho has a really good saying off this. Osho says no man steps in the same river once. Because the river is not river. More dirt has been passed along, more fresh water has been passed along. The thing that you think it was is already past.
The river is not only a symbol of becoming, but the sameness and
You
repetition
were in
of
a
the
tornado
motion is a
zone?
form of being. In fact, Nietzsche claims the
Were
eternal
you actually?
recurrence, this teaching
Or were you just making fun of that one girl like a few months ago?
of Zarathustra might have already been taught by Heraclitus. And finally, life is play. Nietzsche calls the cosmos the innocence of becoming. The world is an eternal play of dynamic forces, their tension and release, their perishing and coming to be. It is an eternal recurrence of a will to create and to destroy, to struggle and to expand. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the eternal recurrence is Zarathustra's abysmal thought and central teaching. It is both creation and destruction, joy and suffering, good and evil. However, if everything eternally recurs, this includes the most contemptible, lost man, which is diametrically opposite to the overman. Zarathustra is full of
Oh, it didn't touch down. Oh, okay. That's good then. I'm good. Glad you're safe.
anguish as he places hopes for mankind in a dramatic historical moment, the bridge from man to the overman. Alas, man recurs eternally, the little man recurs eternally. I had seen them both naked, the greatest man and the smallest man, all too similar to one another, even the great
So he said the Overman. I don't really like this saying. Um, the Overman or the Ubermensch or the Superman. Superman, because I think it's the best way to think about it. The Ubermensch is what it's called in German. But the idea is that if you overcome everything that holds you back, if you drop every single belief system and encompass your ideal, it's like where would you be if there was no restrictions? If you embody that for the rest of your life, you will be there. And that's the idea of the Ubermensch. That's the idea of the Superman. That's the idea that like if nothing held you back, if you could do everything that you wanted to do, that is your idealized self. And Nietzsche, his philosophical idea was something that you should be pursuing your entire life. You should always be pursuing your ideal self because anything short of that is still eternally happy. Anything short of that, you'll still be really, really, really fulfilled doing. You think you'd be a good moderator? Why?
greatest all too human.
Anytime anyone says something like that, I always get very scared.
The great is all too small. That
Give
was
me a
my
good reason.
disgust at man, and eternal recurrence even for the smallest. That was my disgust at all existence. Zarathustra is so sickened by this thought that he remained lying down for 7 days, and for a long time would neither eat nor drink. However, his animals kept him company. While still convalescent, his animals speak to him. Everything goes, everything returns, the wheel of existence rolls forever, everything dies, everything blossoms anew, the year of existence runs on forever, everything breaks, everything is joined anew, the same house of existence builds itself forever.
So he's talking a lot about flux. He's talking a lot about change. I think the idea, just explain the idea of the Ubermensch, goes hand in hand with the eternal recurrence. Because all the eternal recurrence is telling you is that you're going to relive everything again and again and again. You better be happy. But how are we happy? How do we create a life that's worth living? It's becoming the Ubermensch. It's the idea of self-overcoming. It's the idea of dropping every single belief that limits you. It's the idea of not conforming to anything. It's the idea of finding out everything that you could do that would bring you pure joy, pure bliss, and doing that. No need to be afraid. I'm a trusted personnel. Dude, I don't know. That's like the big bad wolf saying, "Let me in. I'm not a bad person."
Everything departs, everything meets again. The ring of existence is true to itself forever. Existence begins in every instant. The ball there rolls around every hair. The middle is everywhere. The path of eternity is crooked. They elaborate further, stating, "For your animals well know, O Zarathustra, who you are and must become. Behold, you are the teacher of the eternal recurrence. That is now your destiny, that you have to be the first to teach this doctrine. How should this destiny not also be your greatest danger
Jaden, if I see you again, I'll give it to you, okay?
and sickness? Behold, we know what you teach, that all things recur eternally, and we ourselves with them, and that we have already existed an infinite number of times before, and all things with us. You teach that there is a great year of becoming, a colossus of a year. This year must, like an hourglass, turn itself over again and again, so that it may run down and
Just repeating the same thing. Um, we'll go into this. We'll see how interesting this video is. I think this guy's a good channel, but sometimes it's just like it should have been like a 7 minute video.
contributed to the rise of the philosophy known as absurdism.
Okay, so Albert Camus he's a French philosopher and he's best known for this idea of absurdism. I don't know if he's going to explain it right, so I'm going to explain it right now. Absurdism is nihilism, but laughing about it. So to me, one of the greatest, it's not the length of life, but the depth. Yeah, I posted that quote. That's an Emerson quote. Um, Absurdism is nihilism with a smile. So it's the understanding that nothing has meaning, that nothing has purpose, and laughing at that. And this really isn't something that makes sense to a lot of people because how could you have no meaning and be happy? But it's in this paradox where you find meaning. I don't know if meaning is the right word, maybe purpose, maybe fulfillment, maybe joy is a better explanation, but it's if nothing matters, then why do you stress yourself out? If in the end of things, every accomplishment, everything that you touch, every dollar that you make will eventually fade to dust, then why do you take life so seriously? Then why do you live in fear? Then why do you not do everything that you want to do day after day after day? You know what I mean? Like if nothing matters in the end of it, like it's really an uplifting idea if you spin it in this way. And it's also the idea of like, this goes into the idea of free will. Like if if you were set to do something, like if you had to grow up to be a doctor, you probably wouldn't enjoy it. Like if you had to do something, then there's no meaning in that. There's no purpose in that. It's the idea that you don't have a set future. The idea that you give yourself value. It's an idea that's petrifying for most people because most people aren't willing to do the work to get to the place where they find happiness, they find fulfillment. But when you confine this through your own personal journey, it means more than anything that anyone else could give you. It means more than any achievement. It means more than any sort of title or any sort of legacy you could leave. That's this idea. It's very much a Taoist idea. I think one of the greatest examples of absurdist today, George Carlin is probably the best example because if you know what George Carlin is, he basically just makes fun of society and tells you how everyone's just kind of an idiot and how bad the world is. But in the end, he just makes jokes and laughs about it because he's like, there's nothing you can really do except smile. Like, what's the point in being unhappy? What's the point in being anything else except extremely joyful? Like, you only have one life. You're only gonna pass around the sun so many times. Like there's no point in you stressing out about things. There's no point in you doing anything aside from whatever it is that you want to do, whatever it is that's going to make you happy. And it's not like the short-term fulfillment things. It's not like let me eat Cheetos and go on TikTok all day. It's the things that generally bring me happiness. The things that you do that don't feel like work. We all have hobbies, we all have pastimes, we all have activities that we can get so absorbed in that 5, 6 hours will pass. And like, if anyone else did it, it'd be extremely taxing, it'd be extremely boring, it'd be extremely difficult. But when you do it, time passes like nothing. And if anything, you're recharged by it. Your spirit is reinvigorated. Like it's finding activities like that really makes life worth meaning. It's a very weird philosophical concept, but once you start to grasp it, it's something that you kind of just have to like think about more, and it just eventually clicks.
He defines the absurd as a conflict between the human tendency to seek inherent value and meaning in life, and the human inability to find any meaning in a purposeless, meaningless, and irrational universe, with the unreasonable silence of the universe in response. However, this world in itself is not absurd. What is absurd is our relationship with the universe, which is irrational. Camus is considered to be an existentialist, even though he firmly rejected the term throughout his lifetime. He is probably categorized as an atheist existentialist. However,
I think so. Existentialism is you're looking for meaning. I don't think Camus looked for meaning. Existentialism is basically breaking down society's values and then assigning your own value. Whereas I don't really think that Camus believed in that. Camus' most famous work is The Myth of Sisyphus, and his crowning idea of that book is that you must imagine Sisyphus smiling in the face of all the torture, of all the pain. That moment when the rock falls back down the hill and he has a momentary breath where he does not have to be working. It's that idea. It's even in the most torturous of situations, there's still a silver lining. There's still brief moments that make life worth meaning, make life worth living, gives meaning to life. I keep saying that wrong. Schopenhauer has a similar idea where he says life is suffering, but it's the moments of bliss, those tiny little moments that make everything worth it.
he would also disagree with this label. In his notebooks, he presents the following contradictory statement: I do not believe in God, and I am not an atheist. This
He was agnostic, very similar to Nietzsche. He basically understood the limits of human perception and the dangers of idealism, the dangers of restricting yourself to a certain belief system. Because the answer is always somewhere beyond our comprehension. The answer is always somewhere that we can't really ever find. And it's the truth of everything that you can never be 100% certain. You can never be 100% certain that you're going to live tomorrow. There's always a small chance you might die. There's a small chance you might get hit by a car. There's never a 100% chance that, the person that you're with now is going to be the person you're with forever. It's like there's always infinitesimally small chances, and it's not being 100% sold on anything, which is really the crowning achievement of great intellectuals. I mean, if you look at Camus, if you look at Nietzsche, if you look at James Joyce, if you look at Socrates, I'm trying to think of other philosophers, other people that were not idealists in a sense. But that's really the crowning achievement of all these ideas. Emerson as well.
This reflects the notion of the absurd. The search of the possibility of the existence of God is humanly impossible, but this also entails that the proof that God does not exist is impossible too. He writes in The Myth of Sisyphus, "In a universe suddenly divested of illusions and lights, man feels an alien, a stranger. His exile is without remedy, since he is deprived of the memory of a lost home or the hope of a promised land. This divorce between man and his life, the actor and his setting, is properly the feeling of absurdity." The Myth of Sisyphus is a fierce expression of the absurd. It starts off with a powerful and thought-provoking statement. There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide.
So it's like the entire first part of the book. I didn't really find it too moving, but again, I don't. Um, so that's something I struggle with.
Judging
So
whether life is or is not worth living amounts to answering the fundamental question of philosophy. Apart from the physical act of suicide,
to
he
me, I
talks
think
about
the biggest philosophical question for me is is it worth it to be liked by society? Is it worth it to fit the mold? Or is it worth all the pain and suffering to go your own way? And that's something I teeter totter on every single day. That's something I think about day after day after day after day after day because I feel like I'm on the edge. I feel like I can either go the left hand path, which is the career, the stability, this set path, or I can go completely into the dark. I can go completely on my own. And to me, this is a very scary idea. And like, I want to go to the right, but everything in my life has told me to go to the left. Every person tells me if you could just focus, if you could just put your energy into this for a little bit of time, you could be really successful. Like I had people telling me my whole life I could be president. I'm like, again, I don't want that, but like that's what people see from me. That's the potential people see from me. But like, even if I have success this way, I know in the end it won't make me happy. But it's getting over that fear, going out into the dark and finding your own path. Because whatever pain, whatever sacrifice, whatever challenge, whatever disrespect you have to face, it's going to be worth it that much more than going the path and always looking back and saying, where would I be? What would I be doing had I just tried to be myself? Had I tried to do my own thing? And that's really the philosophical question I ask myself day after day after day after day. I feel like I got really personal there, but I don't know if people are interested in that. But I wonder if it's similar because to me, a lot of the issues I feel like I have, I know a lot of people also struggle with this issue. I don't know if they're cognizant of it. A lot of the issues I have with is authenticity. It's with showing people a fake side for the sake of not having conflict, for the sake of not wasting my time or wasting my energy. But like it always hurts me a little bit. I can always feel it a little bit when I'm being fake, when I'm being phony, when I'm um doing something that I don't love doing. For whatever reason I vehemently oppose it. I like rebel against it. I like be self-destructive. It's a very weird thing. I don't know if I'll ever get over it. I feel like I'm always going to be that way, but maybe as you get older, it's kind of gets more tame. It kind of gets more um less like I don't know if rebellious or like less present, less apparent.
philosophical suicide, where we accept something as true that is unconvincing, but is convenient and easy for us to believe in, such as believing in some ready-made belief system, which is practically all of the world's religion. This is the complete opposite of Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard's leap of faith. Kierkegaard described himself as a Christian, although he despised the established church, which in his view made individuals lazy and
To me, this is what I agree with for the most part. I think if you take this is straight out of the what's it, Perception, the Perennial Philosophy by Aldous Huxley. Huxley's main point in that book was that every every religious system kind of converges on a singular stream, a singular belief, a singular moral framework. And it's merely just differences in culture, differences in words, differences in language that lead to these different interpretations, that lead to these different religious systems. But he basically said that like the more historical a religion is, the more likely they are to commit a holy war, the more likely they are to justify um, violence and shaming and inquisition like actions. And the more philosophical, the more allegorical they take it, the more inspirational, the more enlightened they become. So, I mean, you can look at Christian mystics, you can look at like St. Augustine, you can look at St. Bernard, St. Ignatius. Actually, Ignatius is not a good example. Ignatius started the Knights Templar, but um, you look at figures like that. Those types of people are very inspiring to me. Even Neville Goddard. I know Neville Goddard's controversial, but ideas like that, ideas that fix it on the philosophical, metaphysical aspects of Christianity are super inspiring to me because um, this is the last point I'm making, and I'll leave because I'm losing my voice. But like to me, the resurrection is the most inspiring idea because it's telling you to bear everyone else's pain. It's literally alchemy. It's literally the philosopher's stone. It's literally the purification of your soul into something higher. Taking all of the harm, taking all of the pain, taking all the sadness, bearing it on the cross and being reborn into something new. That to me is one of the most inspiring ideas, and it's the idea of turning the other cheek. It's the idea of letting people hurt you, letting people break you down, and using all of that energy, using everything that people have said to you, using everything that people have done to you, and using that to be your biggest inspiration. Turning all that hate, turning all that anger, turning all that pain into deep joy, turning it into something that the world can see as a beacon of light, a beacon of hope, not a beacon of despair. Um, but yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys for joining the stream. Pretty fun stream. I'll try to find some more videos tomorrow. But yeah, gonna get back to being consistent. Love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. I'll catch you in the next one.